I'm here to help. Justice shall be done. The light is my strength. Justice shall be done. I stand for the light. A sound plan for honor. The light is my strength. Justice shall be done. A sound plan. Certainly. The light is my strength. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. For my father. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Feel my wrath. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Justice. For honor. Feel my wrath. Of course. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Betrayal of light. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For my father, the king. Certainly. Of course.
Our allied town is being attacked.
For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Justice shall be
Our
done.
allied town is being attacked.
Sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. Feel my wrath. Of course.
Our allied town
For
is
honor.
being attacked.
Certainly.
Our allied hero has
For my father. For honor. Certainly. Of course. For honor.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Betrayal of light. For honor. Certainly.
Our allied town
A
is being
sound plan.
attacked.
Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor.
Our allied town
A
is being
sound plan.
attacked.
For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Of course.
Our allied town is
Sound
being
plan.
attacked.
Certainly. A sound plan. Justice is come. For Lord Around. For honor. Certainly. For honor.
Our allied
Sound
town
plan.
is being attacked.
Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Feel my wrath. For
Our
honor.
allied town is being attacked.
A sound plan. For my father, the king. Certainly. Justice is come.
Our allied town is being attacked.
For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan.
Our allied town is being
For
attacked.
honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly.
Our allied town is being attacked.
You are passing death. Betrayer of the light. Of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Certainly. I stand for the light. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course.
Our
For
allied
honor.
town is being attacked.
Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. You are past redemption. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly.
Our allied town
Sound
is
plan.
being attacked. Our allied town is being attacked.
I'm here to help. For honor. Of course.
Our allies' hero has been slain.
Certainly. Is there danger?
Our allied town is being attacked.
A sound plan. Of course. For honor. I stand for the light. A sound plan.
Our allied
Of
town is
course.
being
A
attacked.
sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Of course. Justice shall be done. For honor.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Of course. Certainly.
Hello.
I stand for the light. A sound plan. Of course. Justice shall be done. For honor. Certainly.
Our allied town
Of
is
course.
being attacked.
Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course.
Our allied
Sound
town is
plan.
being attacked.
Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor.
Feel my attack.
Light. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Justice shall be done. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Justice is coming. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Feel my wrath. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor.
Our hero has our allied town is being attacked.
I'm here to help. A sound plan.
Our allied hero has
Sound
been slain.
Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan.
Our allied town is
Certain.
being attacked.
For honor. Justice has come. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Lord
Our
Around.
allied town is being attacked.
Of course. A sound
Our
plan.
allied hero has
The
been
light.
slain.
Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course.
Our allied
Certain.
town is being
Of
attacked.
course. A sound plan.
Our allied hero has been slain.
Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Certainly. A sound plan. Of course.
Our allied town is
Down.
being attacked.
For honor.
Our hero has been slain. Our allied town is being attacked.
Is there danger? Of course. A sound plan. Certainly.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Sound plan. For honor. Fact. Of course. Father. Justice shall be done. For honor. Of course.
Our
For
allied
honor.
town is being attacked.
Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. The light. A sound plan.
Our allied
For
town
honor.
is being attacked.
A sound plan. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Is there danger? Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. For Lord Orion. A sound plan.
Our allied hero has been slain. Our allied town is being attacked.
Of course. A sound plan.
Our allied hero has
Of course. For honor. A sound plan.
been Our hero has been slain.
I
Our
stand for
allied
the
town is
light.
being attacked.
Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan.
Our allied hero has been slain. Our allied town is being attacked.
A sound plan. Of course.
Our allied hero has been slain.
A sound.
Our allies' hero has our allied town is being attacked.
A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly.
Our allied town is being attacked.
A sound plan. Is there danger? Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course.
We're under attack. Our allies' hero has
Certainly.
been slain.
Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. I'm here to help. Justice shall be done.
Our allied town is being attacked.
Of course. A sound plan. For honor. I stand for the light. A sound plan. For honor.
Our allied
Certainly.
town is being attacked.
Of course. Is there danger?
Our allied town is being attacked.
A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly.
Our allied
Sound.
town is being attacked!
Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Of course.
Our allied hero has been slain!
Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan.
Our allied
For
hero
honor.
has been slain!
I'm here to help. Of course.
Our allied
Certainly.
town is being attacked!
A sound plan.